before getting into electricity and before getting into static electricity, I need to discuss some properties, like some basics. The first basic that I would like to talk about is the charges and their properties. So in nature, it was discovered that there are two kinds of charges, the positive and the negative. So this is how they were called. The properties of these charges are three. The first one is that if you put opposite charges next to one another, like a positive next to a negative, what will happen is that they will attract, like here. While on the other hand, if you put two same charges next to one another, then they will repel. This is exactly the same as a magnet. So if you put a North Pole next to a North Pole or a South Pole next to a South Pole, they will repel. While if you put opposite poles, they will attract. This is the direction of the electrical force. But for the value of the attraction and the repulsion, for the value of this electrical force, we will be discussing it in another video. The second thing that you have to know is that charges are quantized, which means that if I want to charge an object, I can either add a whole number of electrons, or to make it, for example, negatively charged, or I can remove a whole number of electrons to make it positively charged. So I can't remove an electron and a half, for example, or add an electron and a half, because charges are quantized. They come in a whole number of charges. So for example, if this n takes the value of, so by the way, this n is the quantum number. If it takes the value of 0, let's say, so this means that the object is not charged. While on the other hand, if it takes the value of +1, so if it's a +1, so this means that the object has lost an electron. If it takes the value of -1, then this means that the object has gained an electron. So now it's a negatively charged by an excess of 1 electron. If this n is a +2, then this means that the object has lost 2 electrons, but if it's -2, then it has gained 2 electrons, and so on. So I can either add or remove a whole number of electrons. It's the same way as if you're climbing a stairs. So you can't climb a stair and a half. You can either climb 2 stairs or 3 stairs, or you can get down by 1 stairs, and so on. So you can climb by a quantized number of stairs. So this is what the meaning of quantization means. Now, why I'm talking about electrons, let me just talk about this, because you have to know that an atom is made up of, so you know that the atom is made up of a nucleus. Inside this nucleus, there's the protons and the neutrons. And around this nucleus, there are the electrons revolving around. So what's happening is that we know that the charge of a proton has exactly the same value as the charge of an electron, which is equal to the elementary charge. I'm talking about the magnitude, which is equal to 1.6 times 10 to the power of -19 coulombs. So this is the smallest quantity of charge that can be lost or gained, okay? But you have to pay attention to something, that the proton, this proton, it's not participating in any charging process. So the particle which is responsible or which is involved in the charging process is the electron. And why is this? Because the electron is attached to the nucleus by a force called the electric force. And the electrical force, usually, it's not that strong force. So I can break this force by either friction or, so maybe friction can break this force, unlike the force which is responsible to bind this proton to the nucleus. So this proton, it's binded to the nucleus by a strong force, and we will be discussing this later in another topic. So that's why electron is the particle involved in the charging. Moreover, I can either remove a whole number of electrons or add a whole number of electrons. So if I'm removing an electron, the object will be positively charged, because the number of protons will be more than the number of electrons, because in a neutral atom, usually the number is the same because they have the same charge. So this is the meaning of the second property. So I can either remove or add a whole number of electrons. Okay, so this is the meaning of quantization. Now, the third property is about the electric charge, is that it's always conserved. What does this mean? It means that I can never create a charge out of nowhere. I can never destroy a charge. So the meaning of conservation of charge, it means that charges are never created or destroyed. So if, for example, I have an object that gained a charge, so this means that this charge has came from somewhere. So there's another object that lost this charge, okay? And if I have another object which lost this charge, it means that this charge will go somewhere else. So it will not be disappeared, okay? So this is the meaning of conservation of charges. It's conserved. So this is regarding the properties of charges. Now let's go toward the material according to their electrical conductivity. So you have to know that material is divided into 4 categories. The first category, it's called the insulator.